And we're back with year 3 of our player positional rankings in the NBA. Should be tons of fun because we're starting with the most talented position, the point guards. As always, if you enjoy, support us down below. But until then, grab a snack, sit back, and let's talk some ball. Now, the criteria is simple. It really came down to, over the last year or two of basketball, what do your numbers look like, and what is your impact on winning? Whether if you're a defensive guru or an offensive juggernaut, I look at everything. So if you're that great of a defender, that could rank you higher than a player that is a little bit more well-rounded than your ace ability to be an elite defender, right? So keep that in mind. There wasn't really any tiebreakers. If it came down to it, I kind of just picked the player I like better. But ultimately, the point guard position is so incredibly talented that there's 20 to 25 quality guys that you could have made an argument for to be on the list today. So, some honorable mentions. You have guys like Jamal Murray, Tyrese Maxey, and De'Aaron Fox that didn't make the cut today. They've been on my list in prior years, but today it's not. It goes to show you how talented this position is. And Darius Garland, I'm a Cavs fan. He doesn't have a backbone, so honestly, I don't know why I put him there. At number 10 is maybe the best pure passer in the game today, Trey Young, a guy that has led the league in assists for multiple times in his career. And going into next year, there's a wide open Eastern Conference, and he has the best constructed roster around him in his NBA career. So if there were to be a Indiana Pacers kind of a team in 2026, it could very well be the Atlanta Hawks, and that has to be because Trey Young elevates these young guys around him and really takes them far into the playoffs. However, this is a guy that hasn't really elevated some of the younger players around him in recent years and made, I guess, playoff runs in general, which is why he's at number 10 instead of, well, 8 or 9. Regardless, Trey Young is a guy that is an incredible passer, doesn't get the respect he deserves, and I'm really excited to see what this Hawks team can do in 2025. At number 9 is Fear the Beard, James Harden, a guy that is aging like fine wine, and I hope that he continues to drink from the fountain of youth because, well, he's fun to watch. 23 points, 9 assists a game last year, and despite the injuries with Kawhi Leonard early on, despite the roster questions that this team had in the preseason, he elevated this roster as a whole. He got career years out of Norman Powell, Ivica Zubac, and he led them to being a top 5 seed in the Western Conference. Again, a large part of this season was without Kawhi Leonard, so James Harden had an incredible impact on his team in the statistical department and it's just as far as seeing him on the court. But for James Harden, this is a guy that, yes, the playoffs did not go as planned, but I do think as far as the Trey Young and James Harden debate, he had a bigger impact on his team in a tougher conference, and he was able to elevate this team to a farther level, right? Now, for James Harden going into next year, hopefully we can just get one great playoff run out of him because this is a guy that last year, they were hot going into the playoffs. I think they won 17 of 18 on the back of James Harden. Regardless, again, he's aging like fine wine, and hopefully next year they can just put it together when it matters most, which is from April on. Now, this is where the controversy starts because I have Trey Young at number 8, a guy that has just averaged 23 points and 7 assists a game. This is a guy that in 2022 led his team to the number 2 seed in the Western Conference. But ever since that run, it kind of seems like a distant myth because they have kind of fell off and gotten worse as a team year after year since that magical run. This is a guy in Ja Morant that is the most talented guard that I've mentioned so far. He might be the most athletic point guard in the game today. But there's now questions around this roster going forward. There is no more Desmond Bane. And for a guy in Ja Morant that has struggled to elevate the roster around him the last couple of years and get this team really past the first round of the playoffs, this is a guy that now has an even harder task ahead of him. But I do think he's super talented. Obviously, he's at number 8. And this is a guy that his best day is better than anybody below him. So Ja Morant this year, it should be a big one for him. And I'm hoping that this team can at least make some noise and be a legitimate first-round team in the Western Conference playoffs. Because if you just go into another play-in loss or another first-round sweep, it really just kind of hurts the kind of argument that I can make for a guy like Ja Morant going forward. But regardless, Ja Morant's super talented. I just want to see him elevate his roster a little bit more this year and just be a legitimate team. Moving into the next tier of point guards, we have a young guy who's making his debut. You see him on your screen. But then we have 2 hospital stays, and we'll talk about those guys in a moment. But for Kade Cunningham, this is a guy that had his breakout superstar level year last year under JB Bickerstaff. This is a guy that led one of the most young and inexperienced rosters to the playoffs. And for this organization, it was the first time in over a decade that they were at that point. So Kade Cunningham, incredible year. And not to mention, he averaged career highs across the board in every major statistical category. Even though you lost in the first round, you lost to the Eastern Conference runner-ups. Kade Cunningham, amazing season. And in this wide-open Eastern Conference, just like the Hawks, the Pistons could be that team to break out and have a magical run. At number 6, I have a soft spot for Kyrie Irving. I got a bobblehead of him behind me. As a Cavaliers fan, I think you can imagine where that moment is from. 25-5 a game, and yes, this guy will be missing time going into next season. But it's also the first time he's been classified as a point guard since his days in Brooklyn. Now, again, it's a different roster than what it was with Luka Donic, but it is a complete roster. And once Kyrie returns, as long as he can find his rhythm before the end of the season, this is going to be a very scary Dallas Mavericks team if they can stay healthy when Kyrie returns. Kyrie, again, this is a guy that over the years has fine-tuned his game. He has mastered his game, is a better way to put it. And it's just fun to watch him play. He is dominant, but he's also entertaining. Kyrie, at number 6, there's so much I could say about him, but let's move on. At number 5 is a guy that I've been on the train of since Sacramento, and that is well documented here on the channel. Tyrese Haliburton is the promised child of the argument that impact goes beyond the numbers. Because sure, he averaged 19 and 9 last year, good numbers, but we know he plays at a much higher level than what the stats show. This is a guy that last year was leading the Pacers team on a Cinderella run to the NBA Finals. If they were able to win Game 7, they would have became the biggest underdog in professional sports history as far as winning the title in North America. Tyrese Haliburton was the catalyst of that offense. He was the reason why they were shooting at a historic clip in the playoffs. This is a guy that, sure, he might have some nights where he's going to give you 4 points, 6 points, but it might be the most impactful 4 to 6 points in the NBA, maybe out of any player in the NBA. Tyrese Haliburton is an incredible player. I'm hoping for a speedy recovery because next year he's going to miss. But when he comes back, there's going to be a lot of new faces around him. And I'm excited to see how he can elevate that group and keep them in the mix. Moving into the top 4 point guards, this is a prime example of why the point guards might have the most talent at the position now than it ever has in NBA history. Because Jaylen Brunson shouldn't be number 4 on any list. But this is a guy that I think is the 4th best point guard in the game today. And he's also a top 10 player in the game today. Goes to show you how talented this position truly is. But for Jaylen Brunson, perhaps no player has risen up my rankings over the last 3 years faster than number 11 in New York. 26.7 assists a game last year. But this is a guy that, yes, his numbers are great. Yes, he is maybe the clutchest player in the league. But I think his impact is better than his actual numbers. This is a guy that has elevated this Knicks franchise, brought them to contention status to a degree that they haven't seen for years upon his arrival. Keep in mind, this guy is an undersized point guard. Keep in mind that he has the ability to be an elite decision maker, and his elite pace of play just controls the game. Again, that is super impressive to do as an undersized guard. Jaylen Brunson is just mesmerizing to watch. He is pure as far as his attacks and his approach offensively. I just think that this is a team in the Knicks led by a top 8 player in the game today, and it is a wide open Eastern Conference. But because my Cavaliers don't have a backbone, I think the Knicks will dominate the East next year, and they should win it as long as my Cavaliers don't have an identity change overnight. But Jaylen Brunson, incredible player. He just isn't the top of any list right now because of how stacked the position is. Now, equally as crazy is saying that Stephen Curry is not number 1 at his position in any era since he's been in the game. Stephen Curry is a product of father time always winning. But even with that said, this is a guy that's still averaging 25 and 6, shooting efficiently from the field, and he is God's favorite shooter as he's become the greatest of all time in that regard, potentially a top 10 player of all time as well. But this is a guy that perhaps has the greatest gravity on the court of all time. He keeps opposing coaches up all night simply by moving around the court without the basketball. Outside of Shaquille O'Neal in his prime, I can't think of a player that has a better and higher gravity than Steph Curry, even in current day basketball. He's so fun to watch. This is a guy that gave me nightmares for so many years as a Cavaliers fan, as you can imagine why. But Stephen Curry, just due to the fact that I think other guards have just taken different steps in their game, that's why Steph has fallen down yet again another spot. But he's still a top 5 player in the game today, and I am so confident in that argument. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is coming off of one of the most legendary individual seasons we have seen in NBA history. Scoring champion, MVP, the leader of a 68-win team and the #1 seed in a loaded Western Conference. Check. He is first team All-NBA, All-Star starter if we still care about that. He went to the finals and brought this franchise their first championship ever after passing the best player in the game in Nikola Jokic. And also, finals MVP if you needed a cherry on top. All of that while averaging 33-6 on one of the youngest teams in NBA history to win the finals. I think they might actually be the youngest. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had, again, one of the most legendary campaigns ever. But this is a guy that, despite these accolades, I think is #2 in the game today, and we'll get to that in a moment. I could come up here and tell you guys, hey, we have a tie at #1, but that's no fun, right? So for Shai, he's the best two-way guard in the game, as well as everything I just mentioned. I just want to see it for one more season. If he can get this team to be a top 2 seed and lead them to, let's say, at least the second round of the playoffs, I think next year, unless #1 has a crazy year, Shai will be the bona fide #1 point guard in the league today. I just want to see a season like this one more time, and it doesn't even have to have all the accolades to go along with it. Now at #1 is still Luka Doncic. This is a guy that, while he is less effective on both sides of the court compared to Shai, his offensive brilliance and impact alone still give him the edge to me in this argument. I think we can all agree on one hand that this was a down year for Luka, whether by the numbers or his impact on the court. But even with that being said, he still gave the team 28, 7, and 8 on great efficiency and one of the highest usage rates in the league. This is even after all the hurdles that he's had to deal with. Getting traded mid-season, adapting to a new group of guys, new coaching staff, new systems. And this is a guy that even elevated that group to being a top 3 seed in a loaded Western Conference. That doesn't happen with Anthony Davis. That team is a play-in seed with Anthony Davis, as we saw for many years before. That is not a top 3 seed. That is because Luka came in, gave this organization hope, and impacted this team as a whole on a nightly basis. Now, Luka, just like Shai, has pretty much done a lot of the same things. He's been a scoring champion. He's led his team to the finals on one good knee. I can't even really say leg. It was really just one good knee against a much harder finals opponent. Now, I know that you can't really hold that against Shai, and you can't really hold that against Luka as far as who they play in those biggest moments. However, this is valuable context in this regard. The team that Luka played not only swept, but they dismantled the team that Shai would play in the finals a year later. I think if you put that Boston Celtics team against the Shai Thunder from this past year, I think the Boston Celtics are repeat champions as long as they stay healthy, and with Kristaps not having pretty much whatever disease he had. For Luka, that is valuable context. Now, I think you can look at, again, it was a down year for Luka as far as the statistical department, but this year of 28, 7, and 8 on great efficiency, high usage rates, is better than Shai's best year, which was what we just saw. Luka Doncic, to me, given the fact that he had to deal with the hurdles, he still elevated a lifeless group and a directionless Lakers team to being one of the top seeds in the Western Conference. I still think he has the edge. This is a guy that, if you want to look at, hey, despite it being a down year, I keep saying that, but that's what everybody pointed to this year. He was still first team All-NBA, still an All-Star starter, and again, he really elevated two rosters in a big way in one season. It's kind of hard to do that, especially when you're a superstar level player, and well, everything's kind of have to adapting around you. Luka's a special player, and now I will say this. For Luka Doncic, in this debate and argument, if he doesn't either win MVP or bring this Lakers team to the Western Conference Finals next year, he doesn't have an argument. It is going to unanimously be Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for years to come and years to follow. So, Luka, we need a big year. You now have a full offseason and year with the Lakers coming up. You need to have a big Luka Doncic staple year. If that doesn't happen, number 2 from Oklahoma City will continue to add to his resume and unanimously be the top guard in the NBA today. But that's going to do it, man. This is my top 5 point guards, and I do want to throw this out there as well. Shea and Luka are both top 4 players in the game today, in my opinion, right? So it really could be a 1A, 1B situation, but again, that's not fun. Luka at 1, Shea at 2, Steph at 3, and Brunson at 4. Again, 4 top 8 players in the game today. Tyrese Haliburton at 5, speedy recovery, hopefully. Kyrie, same thing. Hopefully he comes back and finds his rhythm quickly. There is a typo here. Kade should be at 7 and Josh should be at 8. Laziness on my part, but again, that happens. And at number 9 is Harden, aging like fine wine. Trey Young at 10. Don't be shocked if they make a big run and he can jump in to my top 5 going into next season. But that's going to do it, man. Top 10 point guards in the NBA today. Next week, we have our shooting guards, and that will continue on until we cap it off with our top 50 in the game today. Again, if you have any peaceful comments or debates that you want to have, drop them in the comments, and I'll get back to every single one.